York City, autographing the first book that I had written. While sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. And the only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing and I said yes. And in the next minute I felt something beating on my chest. But before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to the Harlem hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. And that blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you drown in your own blood, and that's the end of it. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in a wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I received one from the president and the vice president, but I have forgotten what those telegrams said. I received a letter and a visit from the governor of New York, but I have forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter, a letter that came in from a little girl, a young girl, who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I would like to mention that I am a white girl. I've read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply ready to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze. And I want to say tonight that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1960, when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream. And taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the Founding Fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, if I had sneezed. I wouldn't have been here in 1961 when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation and interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere. Because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1963 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Memphis to see a community rally around those brothers and sisters who are suffering. I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. And they're telling me, now, it doesn't matter now. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. The pilot said over the public address system, "We are sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane. And to be sure that all of the bags were checked, to be sure that nothing will be wrong with the plane, we had the plane protected and guarded all night." And then I got into Memphis, and some began to say the threats or some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it doesn't matter with me now. Because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity